Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The air in the luxury store was thick with tension. It wasn't just the gleaming display of diamond necklaces, but something darker, something unknown, hanging over the pristine marble floors. Eva had walked in like she had so many times before, calm, poised, the kind of woman who never attracted attention unless she wanted it. But today was different. Her fingers brushed lightly over the glass counter, gliding past countless rings and bracelets, each piece more expensive than the last. She had no intention of buying anything today, she simply enjoyed the art of it, the way the stones sparkled under the lighting, the way the gold seemed to hum with an ancient energy. She loved how the luxury of it all made her feel, even if only for a moment. Her thoughts were far from the outside world. The glimmering necklace caught her eye. It was a rare design, unlike anything she'd seen before. A delicate, diamond-encrusted chain leading to a single, breathtaking stone. It was the centerpiece of the display, sitting behind a thick layer of glass, almost like a crown. The kind of thing only billionaires or the ultra-wealthy could afford. Eva's breath caught in her throat. She couldn't help it, she had to touch it. She asked the assistant, a young man with slicked back hair and an expression that screamed, "I've seen it all," if she could take a closer look. He nodded, his lips twitching into a smile, then moved to open the glass case. As he handed her the necklace, she felt a strange chill run down her spine. It wasn't just the sparkle of the diamonds. It was as though the necklace was calling to her. But before she could even fully examine it, she saw the reflection in the glass behind her, a tall figure entering the store. The unmistakable figure of a man who had been following her for days. She didn't know him, but she couldn't shake the feeling he was connected to something dark. Then, in a flash, it happened. The store erupted into chaos. The sales assistant's face twisted with confusion, and before Eva knew what was happening, he was pointing at her. The accusation rang out louder than she could comprehend. "Thief!" The word struck her like a slap, shattering the quiet luxury around her. Her heart dropped into her stomach. Thief? She looked down at the necklace in her hands, her fingers frozen around the delicate chain. How could they think she had stolen it? The security guards were there in seconds, their heavy boots echoing on the polished marble floors as they surrounded her. She tried to speak, to explain that she was simply looking at the necklace, but her words fell on deaf ears. Panic began to rise in her throat. The assistant, wide-eyed, stepped back, pointing a trembling finger at her. She took it. She took it. The words were barely audible, but the accusation was clear. Eva tried to remain calm, but it was no use. The shock of being accused, of something she hadn't done, was overwhelming. Her mind was spinning, her thoughts racing in every direction. She hadn't touched anything but the necklace. She hadn't stolen anything. Yet, no one believed her. One of the security officers grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, his grip uncomfortably tight. "Come with us," he ordered, his voice low and stern. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking, "I didn't take it. I swear. I didn't." But her words were drowned out by the growing crowd, some staring at her with pity, others with judgment. The door opened with a harsh swing, and they pushed her out onto the street. The warmth of the sunlight hit her like a physical blow, but it did nothing to cool the sweat now beading on her forehead. She felt dizzy. Disoriented. The necklace was still in her hands, clutched tightly as though it could protect her from the growing chaos inside her. As she stood there, helpless, outside the store's glass doors, a voice in the back of her mind whispered a question that sent a cold shiver down her spine: "Who would want to frame me?" Just as she turned to walk away, the door opened again, and a man emerged. His presence alone made her stop dead in her tracks. It was him, the man who had been following her for days, the man whose eyes she had felt burning into her back when she thought she was alone. The same man who had walked in just as everything fell apart. He was tall, with a chiseled jaw and dark, stormy eyes that held secrets Eva didn't want to know. He wasn't just any man. He looked out of place in a high-end store, like a shadow slipping through the cracks of society. Without a word, he stepped up to her, his expression unreadable. Eva's heart raced in her chest. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words caught in her throat. "Give it to me," he said, his voice smooth, cold. She stared at him, confused. "The necklace," he clarified, his gaze never wavering. "Give it to me." Eva felt a flash of panic, a surge of fear. She didn't understand what was happening. Was he the one who had set her up? Was he part of this plan? Her fingers tightened around the necklace. "Why?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Because," the man said, stepping closer, his eyes narrowing, "you don't understand the danger you're in." Before she could ask what he meant, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her heart skipped a beat. It was a message from her husband, the billionaire she had married years ago, a man who had seemed like her protector, her knight in shining armor. The message was simple but enough to shake her to her core. "Don't worry, I'm buying it. All of it. And I'll handle this." Eva's mind raced. What did that mean? Why was her husband buying the $12 million necklace? And why did he need to handle this situation so urgently? The man before her was still waiting for an answer, his eyes scanning her face like he was trying to read her soul. Eva took a deep breath and decided to make a choice. With trembling hands, she handed him the necklace. But as soon as he held it, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Eva stood there, frozen. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from her husband. "I'll handle this." But the question that lingered in her mind was a simple one: what had just happened? She was caught in a web of lies, deceit, and something far more dangerous than she could understand. And the truth, she was beginning to realize, was much darker than she had ever imagined. Eva sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The tension in her body was unbearable, as if the very air around her was pressing against her chest. The events that had unfolded just an hour ago felt like a nightmare, and yet they were all too real. The feeling of being accused of theft in front of an entire store, the humiliation, the fear. It was like a nightmare that kept pulling her under. She glanced at her phone again. Another message from her husband, but this one was different. "I'm on my way home. Don't speak to anyone. We'll figure this out. I promise." She sighed, wiping a tear from her cheek, her breath shaky. In a way, she knew she could trust him. She had always trusted him. But something felt off. She couldn't shake the nagging feeling in the back of her mind, something didn't add up. Her husband, Alex, was a billionaire, a man who had built an empire from nothing. A man who had always been her protector, her support system. But now, she couldn't ignore the question that had been growing in her mind for the past hour: why was he buying the necklace? It wasn't just any necklace, it was a $12 million diamond. Something that most people could only dream of owning. And now, Alex was buying it, as if it were just another piece of jewelry. Eva couldn't understand it. What did it have to do with her? And why had he told her that he'd handle it? With a deep breath, Eva started the car, driving through the streets of the city with no particular destination in mind. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and doubt. She could barely remember the drive back from the store. All she knew was that she had to figure out what was happening before it was too late. When she pulled into her driveway, the mansion loomed before her like a fortress. The house that had once felt like a home now felt cold and foreign. She stepped out of the car and walked to the front door, her mind still racing. The door swung open before she even reached it, and there stood Alex. His face was stern, his eyes filled with concern. But beneath that concern, Eva could see something else, a flicker of something hidden deep within him. "Eva, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. She nodded, stepping inside. The house was silent, too quiet. It felt like it was holding its breath. Alex led her to the living room, where they both sat down on the plush leather sofa. He didn't speak at first, and neither did she. The air between them was thick with tension. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "I know what happened today. I've been dealing with it." "What happened?" Eva asked, her voice trembling. "What did you mean when you said you were buying the necklace?" Alex's eyes flickered with something, fear, maybe, but he quickly masked it. "Eva, there's more to this than you know. Much more." She leaned forward, her heart pounding. "What do you mean? What's going on, Alex?" He ran a hand through his hair, his expression growing darker. "It's not just about the necklace. It's about what's coming next. And we need to be prepared." Eva's confusion deepened. "What are you talking about?" "Listen," he said, his voice growing more urgent. "I never wanted you to get involved in any of this, but now it's too late. I don't have a choice. The necklace, the accusations, the man who was following you, all of it. It's part of something bigger. Something dangerous." Eva stared at him, her mind struggling to process his words. "What are you saying? What danger?" Alex's eyes darkened further, and he stood up, pacing in front of her. "I didn't want to tell you this, Eva, but the truth is, I've been hiding things from you. Things I never wanted you to know." He stopped pacing and turned to face her, his gaze intense. "I didn't just marry you because I loved you. I married you because you were part of something that's tied to all of this. The necklace, the accusations, the people who are after you, it's all connected to a deal I made years ago." Eva felt the ground shift beneath her. "A deal? What kind of deal?" Alex's face hardened, and he stepped closer to her. "A deal that's about to come crashing down. You're not just some innocent bystander in this, Eva. You're part of a much larger game." Eva's mind reeled. "But I don't understand. What's my role in this? Why me?" Alex looked at her, his face shadowed with regret. "Your family, your father, he was involved with people I've been trying to stay away from. People who are now coming after us. Coming after you." Eva felt a cold chill run through her. "My father? What does he have to do with any of this?" "He made a deal with some very powerful people years ago, Eva," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And when he died, those people came to me, expecting me to carry on his end of the bargain. But I refused. I've been trying to get out ever since. I've been trying to protect you from all of it." Eva's heart sank. Her father's past had always been a mystery to her. She knew he had worked in finance, but he had always kept things close to the chest. She had never asked too many questions, never wanted to know more. But now, the pieces were starting to fit together, and the picture they painted was terrifying. "You knew about this?" Eva asked, her voice breaking. "I had to, Eva," Alex said, his voice filled with guilt. "I've been doing everything I can to keep you safe, but the truth is, we've been caught in the crossfire. And today, they're making their move." Eva's thoughts were a whirlwind. She felt betrayed, confused, and scared. She had trusted Alex with her life, with everything she had. And now, it seemed that everything was built on lies. "But why the necklace?" she asked. "What does it mean?" Alex hesitated, and for the first time, Eva saw him falter. "The necklace is a symbol. A marker. It's something they've been after for years. And now that they know we're involved, they'll stop at nothing to get it." Eva's heart pounded in her chest. "What do they want from me? What do they want from us?" Alex looked at her, his eyes filled with dread. "They want control. Power. And they'll do anything to get it. Eva felt a surge of fear rise within her, but at the same time, something else stirred inside her, something stronger than fear. It was a feeling she hadn't felt in years, the will to survive. "We have to leave," Eva said, her voice trembling. "We have to get out of here. Now." Alex shook his head. "It's too late for that. They're already watching us. We have to fight back, Eva. Together." Eva stared at him, her mind racing. For the first time, she realized that everything she thought she knew about her life, about her marriage, was a lie. But there was no turning back now. The game had already begun. And she was in it, whether she wanted to be or not. Eva sat in stunned silence, her mind still reeling from Alex's confession. The secrets, the lies, the threats, it was all too much. She had always thought that the life she shared with him was a dream come true. They had built their world together, far from the shadows of the past. But now she realized how little she truly knew. How much Alex had hidden from her. She turned her gaze to him, her eyes filled with confusion and pain. "You never told me any of this," she whispered, her voice shaking. Alex's eyes softened, but his face remained grim. "I never wanted you to know, Eva. I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to be dragged into this. But it's bigger than us now. They've already started their move. They know about you." Eva's heart skipped a beat. "Who knows about me?" "The people my father was involved with," Alex said quietly, his voice tense. "They've been after this necklace for years. And they'll stop at nothing to get it. They don't care who gets hurt along the way." Eva shook her head, trying to understand. "But why the necklace? What is so important about it?" Alex ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. "I wish I could tell you everything, but right now, all we need to know is that this necklace is the key. It's a symbol of an ancient deal, one that's tied to an international syndicate, people with power, money, and connections that run deeper than you can imagine." Eva felt like the world was crashing down around her. "So, all of this, the store, the accusations, it's all part of their plan? A way to get to the necklace?" Alex nodded slowly. "Yes. And the man who was following you, the one who tried to take the necklace from you, that was no coincidence. He's just one of many. We're being watched, Eva. Every move we make is being tracked." She swallowed hard. Her heart was still racing from the shock, but now there was something else, a sense of urgency, of fear. This was no longer just about the necklace. It was about survival. And she had to find a way out. "Do you have a plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Alex hesitated, his jaw tight. "I do, but it's dangerous. We'll need help. And right now, I can't trust anyone but you." Eva's mind spun as she processed his words. Help? Who could they trust? Who could they turn to in a world that seemed so full of deceit and danger? "What are you suggesting?" she asked cautiously. "We need to go to someone who knows this world better than I do," Alex said, standing up and pacing the room. "Someone who can help us navigate it. Someone who owes me a favor. Someone who knows how to play this game." Eva raised an eyebrow. "And who is that?" Alex's face grew serious. "Victor Grant." Eva's stomach twisted. She had heard of Victor Grant before. He was a name that floated around in the circles of the ultra-wealthy, a man whose reputation was as shady as it was powerful. Victor was the kind of person who could make or break you with a single word. The kind of man who could disappear into the shadows and remain untouchable. "Victor?" Eva repeated, her voice full of disbelief. "You want us to go to Victor Grant?" Alex nodded, his face unwavering. "I never wanted you to get involved with him, Eva. But right now, he's our only option." Eva stood up from the couch, feeling a mixture of fear and anger. How could you even think about trusting him? He's dangerous, Alex. He's the kind of person who uses people and then discards them like trash. I know, Alex said, his voice strained. But he's the only one who can help us now. If we don't move fast, they'll have the necklace, and we'll be too late. We need to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And Victor can help us protect it. Eva shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. So, we're supposed to trust a man who's been at the heart of the kind of darkness we're trying to avoid? Are you serious? Alex's gaze hardened, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes that she hadn't seen before, a flicker of desperation. Eva, I don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. If we don't get ahead of this, we'll both be dead. His words hit her like a physical blow, and for a moment, she stood frozen in place, processing the gravity of what he had just said. Dead. That was the reality of the situation they were in. There was no escaping it. Fine, she said, her voice cold with determination. We go to Victor. But this doesn't mean I trust him. I'm not going to blindly follow you into this, Alex. I'm doing this because you're right, we don't have a choice. Alex exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Thank you, Eva. I know this isn't easy. But we have to do this together. We'll get through this, I promise. But even as he said it, Eva knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The world she had once known, the world of luxury and ease, of safety and certainty, had been ripped away from her. And now, she was standing on the edge of something dark and dangerous, a place where trust was a fragile thing and survival depended on who you knew and what you were willing to risk. The next day, Alex arranged for them to meet Victor Grant. He didn't give Eva any details about the meeting, only that it would take place in a secure location, far from prying eyes. As they drove through the city, Eva couldn't shake the sense of dread that had settled over her. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew one thing for sure: Victor Grant was not someone she wanted to cross. They arrived at a small, nondescript building on the edge of the city, a place that looked like it had been abandoned for years. It was a far cry from the glittering world of high society that Eva had grown accustomed to. The building was dimly lit, with cracked windows and rusting metal doors. As they stepped out of the car, Alex turned to Eva. Stay close, he said quietly. Victor doesn't trust easily. And neither should you. Eva nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been so nervous in her life. They walked to the door, which opened silently as though it had been expecting them. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke, and the walls were lined with shelves full of old books and strange artifacts. Victor Grant was seated at a table in the center of the room, his back to them. When he turned around, Eva felt her stomach drop. He was everything she had expected, tall, imposing, with cold eyes that seemed to see right through her. Alex, Victor said, his voice low and controlled. I didn't think you'd be foolish enough to come here. I don't have a choice, Victor, Alex replied, his voice steady but strained. We need your help. Victor's eyes flickered over to Eva, and for a moment, she felt a chill run down her spine. And her? He asked, his tone skeptical. She's in this now too, Alex said. You'll deal with it. Victor stared at them both for a long moment, his gaze piercing. Then, finally, he leaned back in his chair. Very well. But remember this, Alex, you can never trust a man like me. I'm not your ally. I'm a means to an end. And I expect to be compensated. Handsomely. Eva swallowed hard. This was it. The moment of truth. They were about to make a deal with the devil. And she had no idea what it would cost them. The air in the dimly lit room felt thick with tension as Eva sat across from Victor Grant, the enigmatic figure who was neither ally nor enemy, but something far more dangerous, a necessary evil. She could feel his gaze on her, calculating, analyzing. Everything about him screamed power and manipulation. The kind of man who played the game, but never played by the rules. Alex, sitting next to her, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He had spent years avoiding Victor, staying out of the darker sides of their shared past, but now they had no choice but to trust him. Eva knew that they were standing at the edge of a precipice, and one wrong move could send them both tumbling into the abyss. Victor's voice broke the silence. "So, you think you can just waltz in here, uninvited, and expect me to fix your mess?" His eyes narrowed as he glanced from Alex to Eva. Alex met his gaze without flinching. "We didn't have much of a choice. We need your help, Victor. You're the only one who can get us through this." Victor leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. "You're right about one thing. I'm the only one who can help you. But that doesn't mean I will." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "What makes you think I'd risk everything to help a couple of fools like you?" Eva felt the tension in the room escalate. "Because we're all in this together now, whether you like it or not," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "You're involved. Whether you want to be or not." Victor studied her for a long moment, his lips curling into a slight, amused smile. "Ah, the woman's got a spine. I like that." He tapped his fingers on the table, considering her words. "I don't have time for games," Alex snapped. "We need the information you promised. We need to stop this before it's too late." Victor's smile faded as quickly as it had appeared. "You're not in control here, Alex. Remember that. I'll give you the information, but it comes at a cost. You don't get to walk away from this without paying the price." Eva looked at Alex, who was now visibly tense, his jaw clenched tightly. She knew he hated being at the mercy of someone like Victor, but they had no other option. "What's the price?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Victor looked from one to the other, then leaned forward. "I want something in return," he said, his voice cold and calculating. "The necklace. You've got it. I'll take it." Eva's stomach tightened. The necklace. The one thing that had started all of this, the key to the deal, the symbol of power and greed that everyone seemed to be after. She glanced at Alex, who remained silent, his expression unreadable. "No," Alex said, his voice low and defiant. "The necklace is not for you." Victor's eyes flashed with something dark, a glint of amusement mixed with irritation. "You think I don't know what you're really after, Alex? This isn't about the necklace. It's about what it represents. Power. Control. That's what you really want, isn't it?" Eva felt her heart race, the walls of the room closing in on her. "We need to stop this," she said, her voice rising with urgency. "The people after us, they won't stop until they have everything." Victor smirked. "And you think they'll stop with you? You've already crossed a line, Eva. Now you're in the game. And the game doesn't care about your little morals." Alex stood up suddenly, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. "We're done here, Victor. We'll find another way." Victor's hand shot out, slamming onto the table. "Don't think you have a choice in the matter, Alex. You're here because I'm the only one who can give you what you need. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're in control." Alex took a step back, his eyes flashing with a dangerous mix of anger and fear. "You think you're the only one who can play this game, Victor? You think you have all the answers? Well, you're wrong. We'll make our own way." Victor's laugh echoed in the room, cold and devoid of humor. "You have no idea what you're up against, Alex. None of you do." His eyes shifted to Eva, his gaze piercing. "And neither do you, Eva. You're just a pawn. A piece in this game. Nothing more." Eva felt the sting of his words, but she refused to let him see her falter. "I'm more than just a pawn," she said, standing up. I'm not your victim. And I'm not going to let you control me. Victor's smile faded as he leaned forward again. I hope you believe that, he said softly. Because when the game ends, the only thing left will be the wreckage. And you'll be right there in the middle of it. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, each one settling deeper into Eva's chest. She had a choice to make, and time was running out. She could feel it. The weight of the decisions she was making, the consequences that would ripple through her life and Alex's life. No matter what happened next, there was no going back. The door to the room opened suddenly, and a man stepped inside. His presence was commanding, and Eva's heart skipped a beat as she recognized him. It was the same man who had been following her earlier, the one who had tried to take the necklace from her. The one who had been part of the dangerous game all along. Victor stood up, his expression changing to one of cold professionalism. It seems you've finally arrived, he said, nodding to the man. The man didn't speak. He simply stood there, his eyes locked on Eva and Alex, scanning them both with a predatory gaze. Who is this? Eva demanded, her voice sharp. Victor's lips curled into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. This is Dmitri. He's part of the team I've assembled to ensure that the necklace stays out of the wrong hands. Eva's pulse quickened. So, you're all in this together, she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. You're all after the same thing. Victor's gaze flickered to Dmitri, and then back to Eva. It's not about the necklace anymore, Eva. It's about who controls it. And whoever controls it, controls everything. Eva's mind raced. The game they were playing wasn't just about a necklace or a deal anymore. It was about power, absolute power, and she was caught in the middle of it all. Alex's voice broke through her thoughts. We're done with this. We don't need you, Victor. We'll handle it ourselves. Victor raised an eyebrow. You really think you can do this without me? You don't have the resources, Alex. You don't have the knowledge. Alex stood tall, his jaw clenched. We'll figure it out. We always do. Victor's eyes darkened. I hope you're right. Because if you're not, you'll regret it. The tension in the room was palpable. Eva could feel it pressing in from all sides. Every decision, every word, every move was part of the dangerous dance they were all caught in. And there was no way to predict who would come out of it alive. As the door slammed shut behind Dmitri, leaving only silence in its wake, Eva knew one thing for sure: the stakes had never been higher. They were playing a game they didn't fully understand, and the only thing that was certain was that they were all in it together, whether they wanted to be or not. The final act was coming, and she wasn't sure if anyone would make it out alive. The events that had transpired over the past few days had pushed Eva and Alex to the very edge. They had faced betrayal, manipulation, and danger from every angle. And now, as they stood on the precipice of the final confrontation, they knew there was no turning back. The world they had known, comfortable, secure, was gone. In its place stood a battlefield where the stakes were higher than ever. Eva stood beside Alex in the dimly lit room, her mind racing. Victor Grant's words echoed in her ears, like a warning that refused to leave her. She had always known that there was more to her life than met the eye, but now, in the midst of this chaos, she understood the true nature of the game they were playing. Power. Control. The illusion of security. Victor, Dmitri, and the others, they were all players in a much bigger game, and they had been mere pawns. But Eva was done being a pawn. She had made a choice, and she wasn't about to let anyone, not even Alex, drag her back into the darkness. We have to end this, Eva said, her voice firm, her hands trembling slightly but steady. No more lies. No more games. It's time to take control. Alex looked at her, his eyes clouded with a mix of fear and determination. I don't know if we can. They're too powerful, Eva. We've seen what they're capable of. How do we fight that? Eva turned to face him, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that both startled and grounded him. We fight with everything we have, she said. Not just with power, but with the truth. With the knowledge we've uncovered. The necklace, the deal, everything, it's just a tool. But we hold the real power, Alex. We hold the power to expose it all. Alex's expression softened, and for the first time in days, he seemed to breathe more easily. You're right, he said, his voice gaining strength. But we can't do this alone. We need to get the truth out there. We need to expose them. Eva nodded, her heart pounding with a renewed sense of purpose. Then let's make sure they don't have the chance to stop us. We're going to take it all back. The plan had already started to form in her mind. She had been thinking about it, formulating the steps she needed to take, ever since Victor and Dmitri had revealed their true intentions. The necklace was just the beginning, but it was their greatest weapon. And if they could use it right, they could destroy everything those powerful men had worked for. They had to get to Victor first. He was the key to everything, the one who held the final pieces of the puzzle. The one who knew everything. And if they could make him talk, they would have the leverage they needed to end this once and for all. It was a few hours later when Eva and Alex found themselves standing in front of Victor's mansion. The lights inside were dim, but the unmistakable sense of wealth and power was still evident in the architecture, the tall gates, the grand columns, the security cameras positioned strategically to make sure no one approached without permission. The place was a fortress, and they were about to breach it. Alex looked at Eva, his face etched with doubt. Are we really doing this? Are you sure this is the only way? Eva met his gaze, her eyes filled with resolve. We've come too far to turn back now. Victor had underestimated them both. He thought they were powerless, just a couple of people caught up in a game that they didn't understand. But they understood now. They understood what was at stake. And they weren't going to let him win. As they approached the front door, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Dmitri. The man who had been watching them all along, the man who had tried to take the necklace from Eva that day in the store. His eyes were cold, calculating, but there was something different in them now. Something uncertain. You're making a big mistake, Dmitri said, his voice low and dangerous. Eva stood her ground, her body tense. I don't think you understand, Dmitri. This is over. We're not playing your game anymore. Dmitri's lips curled into a smirk. You really think you can take on Victor? You're nothing. Just a pawn. And once he's done with you. Enough. Alex interrupted, stepping forward. This ends tonight. We're done running, and we're done hiding. Dmitri's eyes flickered with a hint of hesitation. For a moment, Eva thought he might back down, but then, as quickly as it appeared, the hesitation was gone. He stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. Inside, the atmosphere was just as oppressive as the exterior. The walls were adorned with expensive paintings, rare artifacts, and displays of wealth that seemed to mock them in their current state. But Eva wasn't looking at the art. She was focused on Victor, who sat in a chair by the fireplace, his back turned to them. Well, he said, his voice smooth, almost mocking. You've finally come to see me, I see. I wondered how long it would take. Eva's heart was pounding as she stepped into the room, her gaze fixed on Victor. We're not here to talk, Victor, she said, her voice cold and controlled. We're here to end this. Victor slowly turned around in his chair, his eyes gleaming with the same sense of superiority that had always marked him. You think you can just end this? Do you even understand what you're up against? Eva didn't flinch. I understand more than you think. The necklace. The deal. The people you've been working with. It all ends now. You're going to expose everything, Victor. Victor's face remained unreadable for a moment, but then, to Eva's surprise, he chuckled softly. You really think you have the power to force me to do anything? You think you can take down everything I've built? Alex stepped forward, his fists clenched at his sides. You've manipulated and destroyed enough lives, Victor. It ends now. Victor's smile faded, and for the first time, Eva saw something in his eyes: fear. The fear of someone who realized they had underestimated their opponents. You don't know what you're dealing with, he said, his voice low and filled with venom. The people I work with, they'll never let you get away with this. They'll destroy you. Eva's mind was racing, but she didn't let his words shake her. She stepped closer, her voice unwavering. Then let them come. Because I'm not afraid anymore. And neither is Alex. Victor's eyes flashed with fury, but it was too late. Eva had already won. The truth, the leverage they had against him, it was too powerful. And the moment Victor realized it, it was too late to turn back. The truth came out fast. What followed was a blur: Victor's arrest, the public exposure of his dark dealings, the collapse of his empire. It wasn't just about the necklace. It was about everything he had built on lies, deceit, and the exploitation of people like Eva and Alex. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, and as the truth was revealed, the world shifted. Alex and Eva stood together, watching the downfall of the man who had once controlled their lives. They had fought for their freedom, for their future, and they had won. But the victory wasn't sweet. It was bitter, hard-earned. Because while the game had been won, the scars it left behind would never fade. The lesson was clear: power could corrupt even the best of them. But it was the truth that could shatter that power. And in the end, Eva knew that was the one thing they couldn't take from her. No matter what. As they walked away from the ruins of the past, they knew that their lives would never be the same. But they had survived. And that was the one thing no one could take from them. Wait for next part.